honored and excited and just, well, like we would say, I live to see the day.
Yes.
Yes, it's a blessing.
For decades, rumors have surrounded the life and legacy of Bob Marley, but now, over 40 years after his death, his widow Rita Marley is finally speaking clearly about what really happened, from the courtroom battles for his estate to private family problems. Bob Marley's widow finally confirmed all the rumors. Rita Marley was born in Santiago de Cuba to Leroy Anderson and Cynthia Jarrett. When she was just 3 months old, her parents moved to Kingston, Jamaica. After they separated, Rita was raised by her Aunt Viola. She grew up in Trenchtown, a tough but lively part of Kingston filled with music and community spirit. As a young woman, she formed a group called the Solettes with her cousin Constantine Walker and Marlene Gifford. The group recorded several songs, including rocksteady tunes like Time for Everything and Turn, 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 a folk song written by Pete Seeger. They also recorded tracks like A Day Pon Dem, Friends and Lovers, One More Chance, and That Ain't Right. Some of these songs featured background vocals from the Wailers. There was even a duet between Rita and Bunny Wailer called Bless You, which was released years later on the Lovers and Friends album. It was through the Solettes that she met Bob Marley. He was helping the group with their vocals and showing them how to record songs. Even though Bob was serious and demanding when it came to music, Rita said he was shy when he liked someone. Instead of telling her directly, he would send messages through his friends. In a 21 interview with Rolling Stone, she laughed as she remembered how Bob used others to let her know he wanted to come over and talk. She said, he was sending his letters through his friends, not by himself, through his friends, to say that he liked me and wanted to come over and talk. After recording music for Studio One and working closely with Bob Marley, Rita married Bob in February 1966. As time went on, she became an important part of his music. That shift began when the I-Threes were formed during a spontaneous jam session at a Jamaican club. It was during that moment that their voices first blended in a way that stood out. Marcia Griffiths, who was part of the I-Threes along with Judy Mowat and Rita, remembered just how perfectly Rita's voice fit with Bob's. She said, her tone was unique, different from the normal voice. If we are on stage performing with Bob, Rita is the only person who could sing the same thing with Bob, and it's not clashing. If Judy or I tried that, it wouldn't be the same. Rita was the only person who could sing the melody with Bob. Rita didn't just join Bob for music. According to their daughter Cedella, there was more to it than that. She said, it was important for her to be on the road with Daddy because, people go on the road and switch up real quick. You can leave humble and turn into a monster. I've seen it happen. So, she was like Yoko. She didn't try to keep him away from friends, but she was a protective force. Not long after their wedding, Bob moved to Wilmington, Delaware, where he worked for a few months at the DuPont Hotel to earn money. While he was away, her cousin Constantine Walker stepped in to take Bob's place in the Wailers. During that time, Constantine recorded a few songs with the group, with Rita singing harmonies. When Bob returned at the end of the summer in 1906, he joined back up with Bunny Wailer and Peter Tosh. The three of them decided to start their own label called Wail and Soul. Through this label, they released several records by Bob Marley and the Wailers, as well as singles from Peter Tosh and the group. Some of the songs released during that time included Bend Down Low, Hypocrites, and Tosh's Dem Hafi Get a Beatin', all between 1906 and 1968. In 1968, Bunny Wailer was sent to jail for substance possession. During his absence, Rita joined the Wailers and filled in for a few months. Around this time, the Wailers met American singer Johnny Nash. He helped produce a series of rocksteady recordings with the group. Then, in April 1968, Nash's manager Danny Sims signed Peter Tosh, Rita Marley, and Bob Marley to publishing, management, and production deals. In return, they were given a small amount of money and a chance to record music in Kingston for JAD, a New York-based label owned by Nash, musician Arthur Jenkins, and Sims. During those 1968 recording sessions, the main musicians were Tosh and the Marleys. Rita sang on a dozen rocksteady and soul songs. Most of those songs were never released at the time. However, new versions of Bend Down Low and Mellow Mood were put out in the United States as a single under the name Bob, Rita, and Peter. The original recordings from the 1968 sessions, made with all the original musicians and no added horn sections, weren't released right away. Years later, they finally appeared on the Freedom Time album, which came out in 2003. This release was made possible by Jad's partner in France, 55 Records, after producer Bruno Blum mixed the tracks in Paris just using the original 4-track tapes. One of the songs, Play, 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 featured Rita Marley on lead vocals, with Peter and Bob Marley singing harmonies behind her. Another song called Lonely Girl, also sung by Rita, was finally released along with a playful duet between her and Bob called Milkshake and Potato Chips. These tracks were included in the Rebel Jad Fat 55 long box set, which also came out in 2003. After the birth of their second child, Ziggy Marley, in 1968, Bob went back to Delaware in 1969. He took a job working the night shift at a Chrysler factory to support the family. Around that same time, Bunny Wailer rejoined the Wailers at the end of 1968, and Rita didn't record with Bob again until 1974. That year, Bob formed a new harmony group called the I-3, which included Rita, Marcia Griffiths, and Judy Mowat. This group was meant to replace Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer, who had both left the band in 1973. With the I-3, Bob Marley and the Wailers recorded Natty Dread in 1974. That album helped launch them into international fame, especially with the hit track No Woman, No Cry. Life with Bob wasn't always uncomplicated. He had other women in his life. He eventually had 11 children, only 3 with Rita. In 1976, Bob found himself in political trouble when a planned Wailers concert to heal their divided country was made to look like an endorsement for controversial Prime Minister Michael Manley, and Marley was the target of an assassination attempt. Gunmen connected to Manley's political enemies attacked the Marley house. No one was killed, but as Rita was leaving the compound with some of their children, a gunman shot at her, and a bullet lodged between her skull and scalp. The bullet was removed by way of surgery, but her biggest challenge came when Marley died. Their manager, Don Taylor, was badly wounded after being shot in the leg. Bob was also hit, with a bullet grazing his chest and injuring his arm. Despite the injuries, Bob still performed at the concert, with Rita standing beside him on stage. He permanently relocated to London, where he recorded the album Exodus, which incorporated elements of blues, soul, and British rock, and had commercial and critical success. In 1907, Marley was diagnosed with acral lentiginous melanoma after finding a black spot under his toe. He and his doctor ignored the lesion on his toe since they thought it was a soccer injury. However, it began to spread, and a biopsy revealed that it was actually an aggressive melanoma. He rejected doctors' advice to amputate the toe due to his religious beliefs, but the nail and toe graft were removed instead. Marley continued to tour the world, performing for huge crowds. He sold out shows in places like Milan, Italy, and Madison Square Garden in New York City. But while jogging in Central Park, he collapsed. After getting checked out, doctors told him that his cancer had spread to other parts of his body. He canceled the rest of his tour and traveled to Germany for treatment. There, he stayed at a clinic run by Josef Issels in the town of Rottach-Egern, Bavaria. The clinic used a different kind of cancer treatment, known as the Issels treatment, but after 8 months, it became clear that the treatment wasn't working. Bob's condition kept getting worse. He decided to fly back to Jamaica, but during the flight, his health took a turn for the worse. After landing in Miami, Florida, he was rushed to Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, now called University of Miami Hospital. There, on May 11, 1981, Bob Marley died after the cancer had spread to his lungs and brain. He was just 36 years old. His final words to his son Ziggy were, "On your way up, take me up. On your way down, don't let me down." If you are enjoying this video, appreciate it by giving it a thumbs up, and if you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. 10 days later, Jamaica held a state funeral for him. Before the funeral, thousands of people came to see his body and say goodbye. An estimated 100,000 people attended the public viewing. Inside his casket were several items: his red Gibson Les Paul guitar, a Bible open to Psalm 23, and a stalk of ganja that Rita placed there herself. Though Bob appeared to still have his dreadlocks, he was actually wearing a wig because the cancer treatment had caused all his hair to fall out. After his death, Rita made a choice. She wasn't going to step aside. She was going to be involved in her husband's legacy. Rita's daughter, Cedella, explained what that was like for her mother. She said, "You have everything happening around you, the good the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent that will come out in people. She had to grow a very broad back to take on responsibilities she wasn't prepared for, and that made a lot of people pissed when he passed, because they thought they were going to be the second in command. In 1981, Rita Marley made a bold move. She bought Ken Corey's Federal Records studio, which was the first record pressing plant in Jamaica. After the purchase, the entire Tough Gong operation moved from its famous location at 56 Hope Road to a new address, 220 Marcus Garvey Drive. The studio is still there today. Tough Gong became one of the biggest studios in the Caribbean. It has the second largest live recording space on the island. Artists, musicians, producers, and even tourists from all over the world continue to visit it. A few years later, in 1986, Rita made another important decision. She turned Bob Marley's home into the Bob Marley Museum. This move helped preserve his legacy for future generations. She also founded and became chairwoman of several organizations: the Robert Marley Foundation, the Bob Marley Trust, and the Bob Marley Group of Companies. In the early 90s, a woman named Murray started working at Tough Gong. She remembered watching Rita Marley in meetings and being struck by her calm authority. Jamaicans can be like Italians, very loud and passionate when they get going in these arguments. But she would walk in the room and never raise her voice. She would say, "What's going on?" And the room would shift. But Murray also saw another side of things. She could hear what people said after the meetings were over. According to her, she said, "We could hear people talking as they're walking by. The same people who would come in and smile to your face and talk about all these things, and they're grumbling, 'This woman really thinks she just runs everything,' even from friends of Bob Marley." Bob Marley's death brought a lot of trouble because he didn't leave a will. The Marley estate quickly became tangled in legal problems. In the late 1980s, Rita Marley was reportedly tricked into signing a fake will. Because of this, control of the estate was taken away from her. For a while, the Jamaican government took charge of Bob's estate and eventually sold it to Chris Blackwell, the head of Island Records. But Rita didn't give up. After a long legal fight, the rights to Bob Marley's estate were finally returned to the family in '91. During this time, Cedella helped her mother understand all the complicated legal documents. She said, "I would go through them with her over and over again to make sure we figured out what the big words were. Webster's dictionary was our best friend." Still, more challenges came. In late '91, Rita Marley was caught in a civil lawsuit filed by the estate and its administrator at the time. They accused her, along with a family lawyer and an accountant, of defrauding the estate of up to $20 million. One of the claims was that Rita signed checks using Bob's name. Rita admitted she had done that, but said she didn't realize what the documents were for. She said at the time, "I thought I did the right thing. I would never defraud the estate because then I would be defrauding myself, and that would be crazy." In the end, she was cleared of the charges. However, the lawyer and the accountant were ordered to repay more than $2 million to the estate. According to her family, Rita Marley had used the money to help those who had been close to Bob. Cedella said, "She was doing what she thought Bob would have wanted, to pay the Wailers for the rest of their lives, and for my grandmother to live a fabulous life. And then it all turned around on her." The court said, "Well, no, we don't care if that's what Bob would have wanted. It's illegal." So it was a double-edged sword. You think you're doing the right thing and just really trying to please everyone, but not understanding the complexities you have to deal with when it comes to an estate. The people she trusted were condemning her, so it was a little confusing. She got through that, but it did take a heavy toll on her. In '93, Rita made Cedella the CEO of the Marley Companies, and she still holds the role today. As time passed, Rita's music career slowed down, while her responsibilities kept growing. The Marley family often had to fight against bootleggers and unauthorized merchandise using Bob's name. In 2008, they even took Universal Music to court over unpaid digital royalties. The case was later settled out of court. In 2000, Rita launched the Rita Marley Foundation. It started in Ghana, where she and many family members had moved about 2 decades earlier and later expanded to Jamaica. The foundation's mission is to fight poverty in communities that are struggling. In Jamaica, the organization offers music lessons, public speaking contests, and training in organic farming for young people. as well as healthcare programs for the elderly. In Ghana, the foundation has built a home for the elderly. After suffering a stroke in 2016, Rita Marley was moved to Florida by her daughter Cedella so she could be closer to the family. Talking about the reason, Cedella said, "I said to her, 'You've worked all your life, and this is God's way, as cruel as it might seem, of saying you need to just relax now. The grave is not calling you, so I'ma just make you chill.'" So, that's how we look at it. Though Rita is still dealing with the lasting effects of the stroke, Cedella says parts of her mother's old fire still shine through. Cedella revealed what Rita has been thinking. She said, "I know when she's watching too much YouTube because her blood pressure goes up. She was just watching something on Instagram about the flood in Jamaica for the storm that just passed. I had to tell her, 'Mom, you have to stop watching this stuff because it's not healthy.' She thinks Trump doesn't like black people, and she was very nervous about what she saw happening in America with the election." Now 7, Rita Marley has officially retired and handed over leadership to Cedella. She lives in Miami, close to her family, and is surrounded by grandchildren who affectionately call her Nana Rita. Her latest project involved joining Cedella and son Ziggy as producers on the biopic about Marley's life and career, Bob Marley, One Love, which premiered in February 24. It was during the making of this film that Rita Marley finally confirmed much of what had been happening behind the scenes for years. The movie, a 24 American biographical drama musical, is based on the life of Bob Marley, portrayed by Kingsley Ben-Adir, and follows his rise to fame in the mid-1970s through to his death in 1981. In the film, several events that had never been fully revealed to the public were finally brought to light. Set in 1976, during a time of escalating political violence in Jamaica, the story captures the moment when Bob Marley announced he would perform at the Smile Jamaica concert, hoping to unite the country's warring political factions through music. But just days before the event, as Bob and Rita prepared at their home with other members of the Wailers, they were ambushed by armed assailants. Bob was shot in the arm, Don Taylor was hit multiple times in the chest and legs, and Rita sustained a gunshot wound to the head. Both Rita and Bob were rushed to the hospital, but despite the severity of their injuries, they survived and recovered quickly enough to appear at the concert as planned. On stage, Bob delivered an emotional performance, revealing his bullet wounds to the crowd before walking off stage in silence. The attack left him shaken and disillusioned. Saddened that fellow Jamaicans would try to kill him and his wife, he urged Rita to take their children to Delaware to live with his mother. Meanwhile, Bob and the rest of the band relocated to London, where they began working on what would become 2 of the most important albums of his career. After months of struggling to craft a new musical vision, Bob Marley eventually asked Rita to rejoin him and the band in England. It was during this period of regrouping that inspiration finally struck. Drawing not only from the biblical themes of the Exodus film soundtrack, but also from their own personal exile from Jamaica, Marley and the Wailers began recording what would become the Exodus album. Simultaneously, they worked on a second album, which was later released in 1978. The project marked a major creative breakthrough. Exodus became a global success, helping to catapult reggae music and the spiritual and cultural messages of the Rastafari movement into the mainstream. The success of the album reignited Marley's ambition, and when the record company scheduled a European tour, he also pushed for stops in Africa, hoping to use his music to uplift and inspire people across the continent. But the decision brought new tensions with Rita. The couple began to clash not only over the toll of Marley's growing responsibilities, but also over unresolved infidelities and the sense that he had abandoned his mission to promote peace in Jamaica. As their career grew, Bob's loyalty to Rita began to fade. It's well known that Bob Marley had relationships with many women during his life, many of which resulted in children. His first affair was with Janet Hunt, who gave birth to Rohan Marley. He later had children with several other women, including Pat Williams, who had Robert Marley. Bob's travels to Europe also led to relationships with women in London. He met Lucy Pounder, who gave birth to Julian Marley, and Janet Bowen, who had their daughter Karen. Bob's relationships weren't limited to women in Europe either. He also had a child with Anita Belnavis, a Jamaican table tennis champion, who became the mother of Kai Mani Marley. Another woman, Yvette Crichton, also had a child with Bob. However, one of Bob's most famous relationships was with Cindy Breakspear, a former Miss World. They had a long affair starting in the 1970s, which continued until Bob's passing in 1981. Their son, Damian Marley, also grew up to be a successful artist. Cindy herself revealed that many of Bob's songs were inspired by her. Throughout it all, Rita remained by Bob's side. Things grew more strained when Marley had a heated altercation with his manager Don Taylor over a financial dispute. In 1981, a seemingly minor injury Marley sustained while playing football raised red flags. Rita and Island Records founder Chris Blackwell urged him to take the situation seriously. Eventually, Marley was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of skin cancer. When Blackwell confronted him about seeking medical treatment, Marley dismissed the suggestion. With time running out, Marley began to seek peace not just politically, but personally. He reconciled with both Rita and Don Taylor, and ultimately made the decision to return home to Jamaica in 1978. When he landed, he was met with a massive crowd at the airport, welcoming him back with open arms. In one of the film's most powerful scenes, the man who had once opened fire on Marley and his bandmates appeared, asking for forgiveness. Without hesitation, Marley told him, "I keep no vengeance." Back at home with his family, Marley shared a deeply personal song with Rita and the children, Redemption Song, a reflection on reconciliation and inner freedom. For Rita, it was a sign that Bob was finally ready. She gave him her blessing to perform once more. What do you think about Rita Marley's story? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our next video for more reggae stories.